Good afternoon from Poland, and welcome to our HLS event on border protection during crisis and our biggest challenges during these times. Without further ado, I present Ambassador Alexander Ben-Zvi, His Excellency, please.
Well, what can we say? You know, everybody now speaks about COVID-19 in different aspects. What we should do, should we have a vaccine? Should we have prevention? What are the ways? But one of the things actually that we see all the time that people do, one of the first steps, actually closing the borders. That's one of the first prevention steps that we see that most of the countries did, and Israel was one of the first countries to do so, and it even helped for the first part, but later on there were some internal developments, and some borders are open now. And we do feel that the numbers are rising again. Now, what is the reason for that? Is it the question of opening the borders? Is it the question of internal discipline of the people? We could discuss later. But the most important thing is when we are speaking about homeland security, especially border protection, and in this era of COVID-19, we have to take into consideration that it started to be not only pure security issue as it always have been to prevent unwanted people, let's say this way, to enter your country, but now it's actually part of the health security of the country. It's not only the let's say security from the point of view, protection of your citizens from terrorists or other threats. So this is actually a good moment to speak about it because there are different, I would say, experiences that we have, different experiences the Polish side has, and this is a very good place to share those experiences because what we can do is mainly not only to listen, but not to adopt. That's one of the things we're always speaking about. We are not planning to adopt a thing because you cannot copy paste, but actually we have to adapt what we have, each one of us, and to use good practices that each one or each country has, maybe to go through this difficult period. I know that in following the panel, we have presentation of several Israeli companies as well, and I'm sure that it could be very interesting to see their solutions and to hear what they can say. And as I said, we have to think how to adopt, not to adopt, but to adapt it to local realities. And the same thing is vice versa, because it's not one-way street. So I wish all of us a lot of success in this seminar and a lot of interesting ideas, exchange of ideas, exchange of solutions. And I'm very hopeful that this will be very fruitful for both sides. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Now we move to our guest from Israel, from the Israeli Export Institute, the director of HLS&CYBER department, Mr. Alon Shahak.
Hello, thank you all for joining in for this wonderful event. And thank you again, Sarah and Kate and all of the team for organizing it. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And of course, to our esteemed guests and speakers. Thank you, of course, Ronnie Kidehar from Israel, and all of our partners. I wish you a lot of success today, and you're more than welcome after that in the conference itself, of course in the 14-15, as you can see, to join us and make contacts or even arrange B2B meetings with the more than 100 Israeli companies, innovative Israeli companies in the HLS and cyber industries. We'll be more than happy to assist both with the 6 companies you'll see today and with the companies exhibiting in the conference itself. So thank you very much. And again, enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Alon. And now back to us. I'm Sarah Anmadi, head of the trade mission in the Israeli embassy. And with us, the best speakers from Poland, Mr. Mark Arno Hartwig, Head of Assessment Sector, Vulnerability Assessment Unit in Frontex. Colonel from Border Guard, Artur Żokowski, Deputy Director and Border Management of Polish Border Guards. Thank you for coming here. And Mr. Artur Sterkowicz, CEO of ACS, which is the company that provides the security services at the Polish airports. From Israel, we have Mr. Roni Tidhar, Head of International Cooperation at the Israeli Aviation Authority. And now we start our panel dealing with the challenges in times of crisis for border protection. Let's start with a general question for all the panelists. What are the biggest challenges you think we faced during this crisis and in general for border protection when there's a health crisis worldwide?
Take the microphone. Good afternoon. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to this panel. It's a pleasure to be here, and I extend also the greetings of our Executive Director, Fabrice Legeri, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. Well, I would answer you, and that's in the nature with the mandate of our agency, more from a European perspective. I work for the European Border and Coast Guard Agency. We are there to provide knowledge, support to the member states. With them, we are together in the difficult business of protecting the external borders of the European Union. Yeah, when I prepared myself a little bit for this panel today, what are the biggest challenges? Maybe it's good to recap in an essence, in a nutshell, the timeline. It all started in January, basically, that out of a sudden there was this new COVID-19 virus. China signaled it to the World Health Organization. And then I do remember also for personal business that already in the end of February in Italy there was the first local lockdowns. The country reacted in a way that they banned flights, incoming flights from China. And then very soon we saw other member states following suit. You might remember, and especially the guests in Israel, that here we have to differentiate two things. There are the external borders to the European Union, and then we have what we call the Schengen area, where you normally have free travel. But with this health pandemic, very soon this free area of travel, the Schengen area, was also suspended. That happened basically rapidly in March, and the first lifting of these travel restrictions came only about in June, the 15th of June, respectively the 1st of July for internal and travel from the outside countries back into the EU. What were the challenges? Certainly coordination at European level, and there is still room for improvement. And there is a special nexus, and I'm quite sure that also my colleague Colonel Żukowski can confirm that later on, that at European level, when it comes to the protection of the external borders, there is legislation which says public health is part of that, and the border guards do have to perform certain checks also with that regard. But it is also true that the border guards are by and large not medical experts. Yeah, and that is one of the issues. You have here a nexus that you have obligations of the border guards to do certain stuff for which they might be only to a certain extent be really prepared. The other thing is with a pandemic of that sort that you want to take great care about the protection of that staff. And needless to say, there are a lot of important side effects such as, which came afterwards, ever more to the forefront, and we will hear from that from Mr. Sterkowicz later, a drastic fall in travel, in tourism, in trade, yeah, which has a direct impact to the economies. So that would be what I would list as a starting point. And obviously also, to give you some insight, as an agency, we were a little bit scrambling at the beginning, because also here in Poland certain measures were taken, and the operations of the agency itself, which has a headquarters here in Warsaw, were impacted. And we had to think how to do things better, how to work remotely. I think this is common now in the world. Fortunately, talking just for my little unit, we have secure laptops, whatever. We could do everything from home. But that might not always be the case. Yeah. I would leave it here for the beginning and pass the word.
Thank you so much. Colonel Jokowski, what is your perspective from the Polish point of view in regards to the crisis and how you dealt with it, and what do you see are the biggest challenges during these times?
Thank you for giving the floor, and thank you first of all for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and share our experiences concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. And for sure, it has been a very challenging time also for border guard services, all the border guard services across Europe, including Polish border guard service, because, as it was mentioned, one of the countermeasures to contain the spread of the virus was to limit the border traffic flow. So since the beginning in March this year, there was a decision to reintroduce border control at the internal borders of the European Union. We have an internal border with Germany, Slovakia, Czech Republic and Lithuania. We have also quite a significant part of the external border of the European Union protected by Poland, which is 1,200 kilometers. We have a border with Russian Federation, with Ukraine and Belarus. So that was quite a big task for us to perform border controls at all our borders, including the external and internal border. In terms of very challenging, in terms of manpower, in terms of procedures, and to keep this control for so many months, because usually when the border control is temporarily introduced at the internal borders, this happens in quite exceptional situation and for quite short period of time. So we had this control for several months. It ended in June this year. And of course, it involved cooperation with other state services like the military, like health services, which we usually do not cooperate so closely in normal situation, which this was quite a new task for us, like a cooperation with the military in protection, for example, of the green border, because actually we introduced the border controls at the border crossing points at the internal border, but of course to seal the border and to have quite a good level of the control who is crossing the border. So we had to also introduce control measures at the green border. So we cooperated with the military, which was quite a new and very challenging task for us. It was mentioned that this is a very good point, that border guard officers are not medical experts usually. We have some, but not everybody is a medical expert. And according to the system, national system in Poland of containing of spreading of the virus, one of the roles of the Polish border guard was to select persons crossing the border for the obligatory quarantine, which required for us a very good knowledge of all the medical regulations, who should be subject of the obligatory quarantine, to do this in the right way, which also this was quite a new task for us. We have been doing it until this moment at the external border, because these regulations are still in place. These are very important decisions, because these decisions have impact on the persons crossing the border. But this is also very important in terms of the public health, to execute the existing regulations in the right way. What I want to mention is that the dynamic of the situation was also quite challenging for us, because as the pandemic situation changed, also the regulations concerning the epidemiological situation, but also concerning the border traffic flow, they changed accordingly, and they changed very fast. So we have to adapt our procedures to the fast changing situation. And this is, I think, quite a new situation from each border guard service, or any border guard service, because sometimes we have to change our procedures in 1 hour or 2 hours to adapt to the new situation, and to do this very fast. What was also very important, especially at the beginning of the situation, is to have the right level of the sanitary security, and to provide also undisrupted flow of goods, because flow of goods at the border is very, very important, and to stop it, its consequences would be very huge. And at the beginning there were some problems, but we adapted very fast our procedures, and until the end of the border control at the internal borders, we think that we successfully provided quite undisrupted flow of goods across the borders. And this flow of goods is huge, unimaginable. And actually, if you have border control at the internal borders, then you have some kind of the idea how many trucks are crossing each hour in 3-minute borders, and actually they must do it because some of these goods are perishable goods, so they must cross the border very fast. And with this level of the sanitary security, which was provided by us. Self-protection of officers is also very important, and it has been very important because our officers are the forefront of the fight with the pandemic, and they have a constant contact with the persons crossing the border, with the persons who are also selected for the obligatory quarantine, from the persons who are traveling from the high-risk countries, because of course, according to our national regulations, since now, up to now, the border traffic is limited, so not all the third country nationals can cross our borders. So there are only certain categories of the persons who can cross the border, but of course, for Polish nationals, borders are open. So some of them are also coming to Poland from high-risk countries. And of course, we have a service contract with these persons, selecting them and doing all the paperwork related to the obligatory quarantine. So this self-protection level to provide this, it has been very challenging. It is very important. It is very important. So that was for the beginning. Thank you very much once more.
Thank you. Indeed, it's a very dynamic situation that is changing all the time and requires us to adapt and sometimes adapt in very fast manner. So the next question may be a bit more specific, Mr. Sterkovic. How did your approach towards the security checkup change as opposed to before the pandemic, during these days?
Thank you. Your Excellency, Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your invitation. I'm glad to be here. So, at the beginning, I must say that we still changing our procedures, but of course, our procedure, which we know at the moment, is completely different with before the coronavirus. At the moment, we have been applied all Commission European guidelines. So it means that we have, for example, measured temperature at the entrance to the terminal for all passengers and all employees and travelers and the staff too. And apart from that, we measure temperature at the arrives outside of the European Union. So, of course, we introduce the procedure in case detective increase the temperature or detective the coronavirus. So, for that, we use the thermal cameras and the physical temperature. So, apart from that, we cooperate with all the services which work on the airports, medicine, border guards, police. So I think, of course, the coronavirus influence of our business in the airports, so we must to change our business, but I hope that everything will be all right, because we're still looking for the new solution, how to improve our procedure to avoid the coronavirus. So I think that I would like to say that our people, our travelers, our staff should feel safe, because we introduce the old procedure which to avoid the coronavirus. Of course, we're still looking for the new procedure which will improve, or no, of course, and we're waiting for the vaccine too. So,
like all the world.
Right.
Thank you so much. So we discussed about a holistic attitude and approach that combines a lot of cooperation between different governmental agencies. How do you see international cooperation helping in avoiding more coronavirus cases, even when allowing people to enter borders, or when hopefully the borders will reopen again? Do you think international cooperations together with other airports and outside the EU as well can help maybe put some more word cooperation to perhaps end the pandemic? So maybe from Frontex point of view first.
Yeah, that is a difficult one. Of course, you want to assure also in these times of strain international exchange, and I think the measures that have been taken at European level aimed from the very beginning at reopening after this rather fast and maybe even partly, one can say now in hindsight, haphazard closures. Now, we certainly, as a European agency, are not there to make politics that we leave to the politicians. But if you go also to areas which have seen now an increased cooperation, you said, I think initially also that a crisis like this opens up opportunities. And as an agency, also because we support joint operations in member states such like Greece or Italy or Spain, and have persons there that rotate, also border guards from the member states that are sent there, we had to look at very early on at possible scenarios, how that could develop further. And we came up with scenarios, and then we did something that we call situational assessments on various fields, linked always with COVID-19. That is, what can we take? What can we improve when it comes to the self-protection measures? What guidelines can we possibly also pass on to member states? What can we do when it comes to cross-border crime? Because this is something that still continues. What can we also do to give some practical guidance? And this practical guidance we also try to export further than European Union. And to that extent, we continue international assistance projects, as, like, for example, EU for Borders is one of them. We're also with neighbors around Europe and the southern area. Yeah, in North Africa, we try to give assistance, let them participate from our knowledge. We stepped up the cooperation with other pertinent agencies, like the European Centers for Disease Control. We stepped up, our exchanges also at international level to see what other bodies are doing. Again, it is a little bit difficult when we come to this nexus between real health aspects and border guarding. Yeah? And not to bore especially our guests online, suffice to say that while for border guarding, yes, we have European legislation, when it comes to public health issues, we do not have that much at European level because that is more in the national sphere. And we see that now that maybe looking not only at COVID-19 today, but possible future pandemics, this is an area that should be reinforced. And the Colonel Zukovsky mentioned that they stepped up at national level, the cooperation, which is important. There are at European level, at international level even, concepts such like integrated border management, like also quality assurance for border control, yeah, where you have national, European, international systems that measure the quality of how you do border control. And these are certainly areas where we can still do much more.
Thank you so much. And now for a different perspective from Israel, Mr. Tidhar, how do you see, how was your way of handling the pandemic and perhaps your perspective on international cooperation, trying to maybe prevent more cases or end the pandemic?
Let's decide that you call me Ronnie and not Mr. Tidhar. That's for start off. Good afternoon, everybody.
The good Israeli non-official way. Here we're very official.
You said Mr. Tidhar. I was turning to see who's standing behind me or something. Well, as you can see, I prepared myself and I chose the location from speaking from. Behind me, you can see a very painting by, don't ask me to repeat the name, but a famous Polish artist. It's original, so I thought the force that you can see from the picture may assist us to tackle this pandemic eventually and this crisis. I don't know if you have, I prepared a presentation. If you want me to go through that or just an open conversation, I can do both. So, Saran?
Whatever you feel like.
Okay, so I'll try to share screen, please, and I'll try to do it as fast as possible because everybody are on the same page here, I guess, for the phenomena itself. Okay, just host should allow it.
Kate, can you?
No. Okay.
So maybe start with your general perspective, and then we can move to the.
First of all, I, as being the second colonel on the talk at least, and that's another thing, just to say that we in Israel see also some similarities between the perspective of international border on one angle, and I won't call it, because we are in the presence of diplomats, I won't call it a second border, but we need to divide ourselves from our Palestinians right across from our cities and make sure that the inner boundaries, let's say, are kept as well. So we have those two perspectives. Of course, taking in consideration also the difference in sizes between the countries. Poland is much bigger than Israel, and with many more land border crossings and international airports. As a representative of Israel Airport Authority, we are in charge of operating our international airports, which are two: Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv and Ramon Airport close to Eilat, down south, and also responsible for land border crossing terminals operation and security. The border security itself along the borders is under the responsibility of the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. We have a police corps called Border Protection Corps. Yet again, they're not doing border protection. That's something that they did 50 years ago, and now they're dealing with something else. So this is just so we'll be all aware of the situation. Our perspective is we from the beginning of the Chinese info leaks about sort of pandemic, we looked at ourselves as an island. Although we have some land borders, yet again, consider the political sensitivity, geopolitical sensitivities surrounding us, we are sort of an island. And Israel was between the first countries in the world to close borders gradually but rapidly from Chinese-bound aircraft to then Italian and then everybody. The bad news is up till now we're still close to non-Israelis, unless of course the diplomats or foreigners that actually the center of their lives is in Israel, and only then it's very irregular to get permission to land in Israel. So we are still closed from mid-March till now. For 6 months we are actually on self-blockade from international aviation or land border crossing passengers. In April, we analyzed that we need to have some kind of mechanism within our international airport or border crossings. We needed to have test area or something like that. We thought that we know what should be the solution. We talked with many partners around the world, but because we didn't had back then and still a very clear understanding of the regulation, what is required by state agencies, we couldn't be forwarding the plan to do so. Now we're in the middle of we already have a winner in the tender, in the bid. So hopefully in a month time we'll have COVID-19 checks areas within the airport. Looking at the world, because I am following closely about what's happening in other continents and other countries and in airports. I'm specialized in airports because this is the main focus for us. Movement is going on. You feel it. You said, sir, that you mentioned Schengen before. Within Schengen, I think international travels came not to a normal, but at least some dozens of percent from last year. In China, domestic aviation back to normal. They offer the same amount of seats like last year already. In the US, it's about 40 to 50% volume of traffic in domestic one, what they call domestic. International aviation is still struggling hard. And Ben Gurion Airport, I would say, won last month, second place in Europe as the most affected airport. We are operating with an average of a month number of passengers equals to last August or September 1 day of operation. So it's about 95% drop. Yet for the next step, and I'm finishing my point here, the next step would have to be with bilateral or multilateral agreements and understanding between countries, and they should be flexible, because if you take the colors indication, red and green and orange and things like that are changing very rapidly. So today's green is tomorrow's red. So we need to understand it, to be flexible, and this is where diplomats, ambassadors are stepping in. We need to be on solid basis, and I know that Poland and Israel have one.
Great, thank you so much, Ronnie. Speaking about opportunities for international relations, Mr. Sturkovic, you mentioned that you had the thermal cameras,
right,
to help with the process of border check. How do you see technologies or adopting new technologies helping in fighting this pandemic, or in general, maybe making the border check easier? And also, how do you see it in international perspective? So opportunities for international companies here.
Yeah, in my opinion, the cameras, thermal cameras, of course, help us to changing the situation at the moment. I must mention that apart from the cameras, there is the separated distance between employees and passengers and travelers. And of course, our employees have access to personal protective equipment like the mask, gloves, and disinfection liquid. So I think that the cameras, of course, the mobile eye help us to judge the people which want to come to the terminal, and of course we have airport regulation which knows how to should be and how to do if something happens with of course with device with detective someone who has the increase the temperature, which I mentioned before. So of course I think of course apart from that we separated the security check stands and disinfected the little boxes, disinfected the communication lines and work stands. So the cameras and the technology, I am sure that help us at the moment, and I think it will be the future, which it is one of the solutions how to help with this situation. So I think we have a very good job for the border guards who has a little bit job for him.
Thank you so much. So Colonel Żukowski, how do you see adopting new technologies helping in the whole in pandemic situation?
Well, sorry, may I? Yeah.
Yes.
So I must tell one more. In the plans, we are here to create a new center, monitoring center, who will be focused on the temperature measured. So, but it's the plans at the moment.
So later, just to mention that later we will have 6 Israeli companies with technologies that are suited for border management and border control, some face recognition and optic recognition as well. So you'll be able to hear some Israeli technologies that might help also in coping with the pandemic situation. So Colonel Żukowski, to you, how do you see new technologies adopted to fight the pandemic or to help coping with it?
New technologies are very important, of course, without any question. But I would like to underline one thing, which is quite important as for law enforcement services, which is our service. So what is for our primary importance is to strictly follow the rules, because we cannot do anything without the strict legal provisions for this. And we cannot do less and we cannot do more than is stipulated in the law. So, of course, the regulations must follow the development of the new technologies. And the development of the new technologies should be foreseen, should be included in the development process of the new regulations. So, as for the moment, we are following the procedures developed and regulations developed by the sanitary inspection in Poland. We have state services responsible for that, which is issued provisions, regulations, and requirements are for the sanitary procedures at the airports. Also, at the moment, our role as for the executing of the sanitary control, I mean, in the way the temperature is measured or some other physical controls is limited. We are not doing this. Our role is to cooperate with the Ministry of Health in the way that we interconnected our IT systems used for the border control with the system of the Ministry of Health. And in that way, we can put the data of the persons crossing the border who should be subject to the obligatory quarantine. And this data is also used by other state services which are following if this obligation is strictly followed by the persons who are crossing the border. So that is our contribution to the overall task of providing of the sanitary and epidemiological security in Poland. But nevertheless, these new developments in terms of technology are very important also in the way they can provide the security for our officers who are executing border controls. And this doesn't matter who is using these technologies. It can be used by the services subordinated to the airports. This could give increase overall level of the epidemiological security, which is good for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you mentioned regulatory changes, or at least a legal ground for adopting new technologies, again with the holistic approach of having it coordinated between different governmental agencies. So my next question is to you, Mr. Hartwig. In Frontex perspective, do you see any change in policy during these times, or how do you see your agency coping with the new, completely dynamic and constantly changing reality in terms of being more prepared and, of course, having the legal ground for it and everything related to it? So, please.
To be very honest, it's a challenge. It is a challenge, and we have to prove every day in this pandemic an added value. Yeah, that's how it should be in every branch of the public service. If you do not bring any added value, then yeah, well, you might actually you're obsolete, sort of. Exactly. When it comes to COVID-19, and to pick off where you left also a little bit with your last question, coming back to the practicalities on the ground. Well, we as I said, when we developed the scenarios, we looked also a little bit at what was at the market for COVID-19 testing, for example, what machinery, what quick tests do you have? And this is certainly an area where in the very near future, I would assume, and even as we speak, we will see some progress. The issue here is, and I think my Polish colleague pointed it out very well, even if these quick tests come around and you would have something that you could employ at the border crossing point, which gives you a result in 5 minutes, who takes the final decision? Is it the border guard? Is it again a doctor? Is it, that's one thing, yeah, which you want to regulate. The other thing which border guards across Europe already now face is they can refuse entry from outside on public health grounds, but it has to be well justified, because that can be also challenged in court.
Rather.
Yeah. So you want not to give haphazard decision there, yeah. And here the issue was in the past couple of months, how do you do it, yeah? You have a test result on paper, how do you handle it, what validity has it, and so forth, just to give you a brief aperçu, so to speak. Technology has driven the way border control, borders are managed. If we just come back to what I mentioned initially, the Schengen area would be unthinkable without the Schengen information system. That was one of the, call it prerequisites to actually go live. There was at the time no pan-European system that all the border control forces could consult. It was created, and that is one of the pillars also of that Schengen area that has been refined, improved, and there are new systems in the pipeline. I mentioned just one, entry-exit system, which is supposed to come in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, which is similar to the American ESTA getting rid of the paper-based, passport-based visa. Yeah. However, I might spoil a little bit the party here, saying that with these new systems, what border control authorities also have to deal with are new challenges and new vulnerabilities. Because if we think about facial recognition, if we think about automated systems that out of a sudden handle the visas and whatever, such systems can be hacked. I see here the logo cybercrime, yeah, cyber threat. Now this is a complete new sort of vulnerabilities if we go towards an ever increasing digitalization of the border.
Thank you so much. So you mentioned also cyber hazards concerning adopting new technologies. In general, this whole situation has brought us to a new reality where everything has to be protected. You mentioned earlier remote work, which also has to be, the whole process has to be protected and perhaps authenticated, maybe to prevent some maluse of information. Which brings me back to the border control and border management. Eventually, we have to adopt new solutions so we can cope with all the challenges that this situation brings. So back to you, Mr. Sterkovic. Where do you see your needs in this matter in terms of maybe equipment or new technologies, for example, to better handle first protection of the staff that's working at the airport, and to allow all the passengers coming to Poland to have a more safer process?
Of course, the new, I would mention before, the new technology, we're still looking for the new technology to improve our process to the detective and the coronavirus and other dangers. So we must know that apart from the dangers which we already know, we have facing something new, like the coronavirus. Our colleague said about the RODO. It's mean RODO about our cyber. Most of them depends on the self-discipline, of course, because the people doesn't like the by control, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, we try to find the solution of that, and our government, our services, find the regulation, introduce the new regulation. Well, but the way the technology where we can use, of course, on the entrance, in all the communication lines, on the staff, where our staff works. It's mean the check-in or the check stands, work stands. This device can be used there. So. I still, well, maybe I say that again, the life put us in the new situation, which frankly speaking, no one are ready for this. So it is something new, and we all of us need to find the solution how to improve our safety.
Yes, definitely. So moving to you, Ronnie, if you can explain maybe a bit about the entry-exit system in Israel, and how did you cope with the system these days? I know the airport has been closed for the last 6 months, but I know that recently it was opened for a couple of countries. So if you can please unmute
the
yourself.
Airport wasn't closed, okay? The
Well,
airport wasn't closed. It is still flights, well, very low,
very low number
amount of flights. That's because we allow only Israelis or Israeli passport holder to come to the country. As I mentioned, a very small numbers of foreigners are entitled to fly over. That's the reason for that. What you mentioned is the agreements that we have with Greece and Bulgaria currently of flying over Israelis into their countries. This is something, but flights were every day, very few ones, but we had to the States, we had to Europe or other destinations. Now, what we are doing currently in the incoming process. First, there is an announcement on right after the aircraft is parked. There's an announcement on the loudspeaker within the aircraft about the procedures that passengers are encountering. Second phase would be a passport check to verify whether you are Israeli or not. And if you are not, then let's start the negotiation very close to the gate, very close to the aircraft. Why are you here if you are actually allowed to come currently into the country? Then you go through a stand of immigration that actually are interviewing you and see that you need to fill out in Ministry of Health website, you need to fill up a form, incoming passenger form. They make sure that you filled it right, that everything checks all right, and to try to analyze whether there's any kind of risk, immediate risk from you. And they want to find out where you're gonna spend your obligatory 14 days of isolation or of quarantine. The options are either that you supply one. At my office currently, just around the hall in that door, my son arrived 2 days ago from the States, and he's self-contained in there. We bring him food and everything, you know, self-isolation as proper. So this is one option. The other one would be that you rent and prove that you have booked a hotel room, and the third would be to go to specific hotels designated by Israeli authorities to people that have symptoms or positive to coronavirus or have no other facility to stay in. So these are the options. This is in that stand. Afterwards, you're going through passport control, regular one, biometric or whatever. And then there's a stand of health services in Israel to check your temperature, or actually try to see if you have any kind of symptoms. It's not only temperature. Quota, if I will eventually get to that presentation, I'm placing very big question marks on the temperature checks, the relevancy and everything. I call it opium to the mass. That's just psychological thing. You can bluff it in a minute. That's nothing. I mean, usually when they test my temperature when I'm driving and entering the airport every morning with air condition on, so sometimes they get results like 32 or 31, so I'm dead. Okay?
Today I got 33, so I'm with you on that.
So so this is, it's nice to have, but this is not a solution. Okay, they didn't have something else, so they placed this one as a precaution, but not that's not the answer. And this is without affecting the fact that there's great technologies. Some of them are Israelis that you will be faced with during the conference and maybe today. There are solutions. If that's the decision or the regulation, there are solutions to do it in a better way. And after that, you actually, if you're, I'm going back to this health ministry temperature checks, you're going through a normal incoming hall, taking your luggage from conveyor belt, and you're off through customs, and that's it. Now, at the airport, what we did also, and this is according to current regulation, we want to monitor how does passenger travel to their destination, to their home isolation or hotel or whatever. So we diverted the location of taxis, for instance, to a side door parking, so we can monitor that. We actually question everybody getting out of customs. How are you going to drive them? If somebody come to pick you up, it should be one driver, and you need to sit at the back seat with windows open and think these are the regulations. You are informed, and off you go. If you need a public transportation, you are going to through a channeled way to taxi, and the taxi drivers are also informed, and this is how you travel. Those that have that need to go to this hotel for quarantine, the authorities supply either buses or taxi over. So this is how we as an airport, as part of this chain, are trying to support that thing. Of course, into the terminal halls, not everybody can come in, only if you have an appointment or you're a passenger. It's totally different airport. The train, for instance, is driving through the airport, but not stopping in our platform, in our station, which is very pity because I need to drive every day to work. So this is part of, I hope I answered some of these elements. In the border crossings, land border crossings, we do the same. And we are trying to implement or to deploy this technology for PCR tests, and the result, according to the bid that the winner, the bid should be supplied either between 4 if you pay triple time, or if you pay regular, in 14 hours you get the answer. Till then you need to be isolated, quarantined. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Maybe just our last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Can you point out a technology that you think is crucial during these times, from your perspective, or that the Israeli airport uses?
Well, I will name maybe not too many names, but just before that, I think that the airport health checks, or how do you call it, those PCR tests or whatever, are here to stay for a longer time. Why? Even if the world comes out with a vaccine, we still don't know, and I'm not referring to Russian, Chinese, American, or Israeli vaccine, just a vaccine as a general. We still don't know whether it's like an influenza vaccine that you need to take it every year, or it's something that like polio that you take it once for a lifetime. We still don't have obviously data to see whether it's bulletproof or not. So governments would require some kind of evidence that you were tested prior to arriving to the borders, or while you entering the country within frame time, or that you've been vaccinated, and maybe they will ask you on top of the vaccine to be checked. So the technology is quick. Currently PCR, maybe there's some other scientific thing, but quick, reliable, and cheap tests. Because if you travel once in 6 months, you will pay whatever you'll be demanded to pay. If you travel every week for business or things like that, there's a limit to that as well. But to have other technologies, I can see maybe, and I guess you will see some demonstrations, crowd control technologies that will tell you, listen, because we have limited amount of manpower, especially under this crisis, because budgets are low, income is low, budget for security is low. We need to pull this blanket everywhere. So if you're very sharp on understanding where is the local crowd cloud, either on the entry to the terminal, or now it's in the incoming because you have 3 flights simultaneously, or on the train platform. If you get it by either the technologies that I'm referring to are doing it via cellular location, not invading privacy, but just understand the signals, or with video analysis, they can do that and give you a reaction. You can deploy people very fast and get results, because you need, as an airport, we also are responsible to make sure that there are social distancing rules are applied. We need to do so. You see people walking around and saying, listen, move away from each other, put on your mask and things like that. And there's a limit to what people, to the amount of people that can do that. So this is just a starter for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Colonel Zhukovsky, your perspective on crucial technologies during these times and probably for the next year or even more?
As I mentioned, technologies are crucial, very important, should be adapted to the development and to the new provisions according in terms of legal acts. We are very interested as for our service in developments of new technologies, and we are following new developments in this regard. So basically, that's all what I wanted to say in this subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stokovic?
Excuse me, just one remark before Mr. Stokovic. Sorry for the interruption. Touchless technologies, whatever, either kiosks for retail or for passport control or for information, preferably apps that can bring all information into my personal cell phone. So I only to touch other things, only my personal cell phone, and by that doing my way across. Obviously, you mentioned, Sarah, and you mentioned face recognition. This is part of it. This is part of it. Sorry for the
I would say that this is a very good point and a very good observation, and I think that this pandemic will change or has changed already our perspective on this kind of the new developments, and we are looking also in terms of the technology as for border control. We are looking also from a little bit different perspective, from the sanitary perspective. So these touchless technologies, and we did not do this before. And I think that it will last quite long, this new perspective, if not forever. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Seamless checkup is definitely crucial during these days. So maybe...
What can I say? I completely agree with our colleague. So everything depends on the regulation in our country and the money, of course, too.
Yeah, so, of course, definitely. So, Mr. Hartwig, your remark.
There's little to add. Yeah, I would agree with PCR technology. I would agree with touchless. I would add one other thing, and that is to get the maximum of usable and actual reliable information to the individual border guard. I think there is still some potential that we see now that, yes, many instances are now forced to work together, but the information flow is maybe not always such that the actionable information directly arrives at the border crossing point. And I think there could be still
we must find a balance.
I wanted to ask actually our Israeli colleague, because you are, Ron.
We decided
Ronnie, at the airport, I suppose that you also certainly use ABC gates, E-gates normally. And this is, for example, something that was always hailed as a great enabling technology, which probably now is what? Completely deactivated.
That depends on the location, okay? Because if I have at boarding, for instance, at boarding to the aircraft, E-gate, I have no problem. It's already passed all the processes and the different temperature checks and things like that. Obviously, if it's an automatic doors that are between public to restricted and through the access control systems, we needed to, let's say, those that we use fingerprint, we needed to stop it because the employees didn't want to place their finger one after the other. So we needed to come up with another solution, video solution, things like that. We have some experience with video analysis at that point, but this is not for immediate deployment on all passengers. So, but that can assist. I totally agree with the colonel saying about sanitation. This is protecting our own employees from two angles. First of all, because they are employees and they're human beings and we need to protect them. Second of all, they are reviewing passenger after passenger after passenger. They can infect others. So if they get infected, they can infect others and be spreaders. So sanitation and disinfection technologies are also in place. I saw some very interesting things recently. I'm sure that some of them would present during the conference. Just something that I didn't want to name because I didn't saw it. Actually, I should see it next week. But one company in Israel already came out with glasses, with glasses that can project, like on a pilot helmet, that can project only on those that have temperature. So for border protection personnel standing and observing with just like a sunglasses, but transparent one, he just see everything doing his normal routine and get indication only on the specific person that that he needs to say, and not checking one by one by one by one. So this is something that can be, if it's relevant, but I need to physically see it next week, not yet. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. And thank you to all our guests. Unless you have some last remarks, then we can have a 5 minutes break, and then later we will host 6 companies presenting some biometric and automated solutions for border control. So thank you for now.
Thank you very much. Gal and I are very interested to hear the panel and your conversation around, I suppose, the challenges that everybody's facing from a border control perspective. Where we're coming from is very different to where every other facial recognition software comes from, in that our technology didn't start in terms of passport control. We didn't start to build our software with one-to-one technology, i.e. e-gates, ABC gate control. We started our technology a long time ago in terms of conflict-based. So where there is conflict, where people are walking around in face masks X years ago, before COVID, and military intelligence services wanting to identify who those people were. So our technology, our facial recognition technology, does things very differently to standard facial recognition technology. What we'll show you is real live working software that is able to detect people with side-on faces, with face masks on, with or without face masks on, so you can detect whether somebody's wearing a face mask or not. We're not going to bore you by going through 5,000 PowerPoint slides. What we're going to do is we're going to show you real working software and how it works. There's a few things I picked up in terms of some of the conversations was speed of address, angle of address, lighting, looking at whitelists and backlists. So are these people actually allowed in this particular area? And the whole touchless scenario. So how to manage people through things from a touchless perspective. And clearly, you've got face recognition systems in airports, in ports, at land crossings. But right now, 90% of those facial recognition systems are redundant because people have got face masks on. And, the criminals in this world know that. They are moving around those ports, those airports, in face masks, committing criminal offences. And I think also the thing to look at in this regard is actually the safe environment that you're looking to prepare and control. And I reflect based upon, I suppose, the Brussels plane attacks or the airport attack, was that those 3 guys, the man in the hat, the classic man in the hat in Brussels, wasn't actually traveling anywhere. He was just walking through that airport with a big bomb. And if he could have been detected, he should have been detected rather than just looking to protect the traveling passengers. So without more ado, what I'd probably do is hand across to Gal. What we want to do is go through and show you the things that we've talked about. Masks, face masks, angle of address, low light, real quick detection. Gal, you're on mute, by the way.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I'll share my screen. Can you open me the possibility to share multiples? You know what? Let's do it like this. No, let's do it like this.
Yeah.
So everybody's seeing both of my screens, my video stream and also the back stream. Great. Okay. So hello, this is my camera and this is me, Gal. Nice to meet you. I'm from CoreSite. Now you can really see me. At first, I'm going to explain a little bit about what you're seeing in front of your screen, a little bit about what are all of those pictures and what is this live stream and this bounding box says. And then I'm going to run a little bit about scenarios and the difficulties that we can handle. So at first, the window that I'm moving now, that's the live stream video that I'm getting from my webcam. Here on the left, you can see the recognitions that we're getting. This is my recognition. This is my picture from the live stream video. Here you can see the picture that I have in my database. That's the only picture that I have in my database. You can see also a match of Ofer. He passed behind me a few minutes ago. And here you can see all the events. Every face that will be in front of the camera will be collected here as an event. So here you can see a blue bounding box that surrounds my face. The bounding box states that the system recognized there's a face, and that face is Gal from CoreSite. Okay, if I'll cover my face, you will see a green bounding box. That green bounding box states that the system recognized there's a face, but she doesn't know whose that face is. A short thing that I'm going to show you is just that I'm running in front of 4,500 POIs, okay? Most of the demos that you're going to see will probably be in front of 10, 15 guys. And also, I want you to see that on my POI card, I have only my picture. There's no other picture that would be my face would be assessed to. So let's move along to the advantages. So we've talked about the angle of address, and I would like to talk a little bit about what we can do. So once we're talking on sides, most of facial recognition systems will tell you that the max angle for recognition would be 45 degrees. I'm going to just tilt my camera, and you can see that there's a green bounding box that states that the system doesn't track me, okay? It doesn't recognize who I am, it just recognizes that face. And I'll start moving my hand, and you can see that it looks at me at 90 degrees. But let's do another scenario, a different one. That's from up. And once we're seeing up, I'll just lower it, see green bounding box. Again, looks at me, I'm somewhere between 45 to 60 degrees. Most of the other facial recognition systems will tell you that the max angle is 30 degrees. And those are the angles. But let's talk about what you've got.
For you for that, sorry, Gal, the real benefit for you for that is in an airport environment, what you don't want to be doing is changing all the existing infrastructure. Use the infrastructure that you have and make the technology work with the infrastructure that you have. Don't have to swap out and spend thousands of euros more to get new infrastructure. Please carry on, Gal. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move to the nicer thing that you probably think of and you probably heard of. So masks. So I'll put on my face mask and I'll try to do it the best as I can, the right way, you know, tied it up above the nose. And you can see that it still recognizes me, but now you're probably telling, it tracks you, you've been in the frame, it recognized before. So let's get out of the frame and let's get back. And let's cover my face and let's get back. And it still recognizes me. You know what, let's cover and see that there's a green bounding box that surrounds my face. So it's searching for a face and I'll open my hands. And again, it recognizes me. And I want you to remember, my POI card, my person of interest card, had only one picture to be referenced to. And that's the picture. Other systems will tell you that they can recognize a face with a mask. But they will need to have on the database a picture with a mask on. And Rob started to tell you how we got to it. We didn't overcome this now or at the start of COVID, the have face covered. We've overcome it 2 years ago, and I'm going to show you how we done it and what's the specific scenario that we try to overcome. So you can see that that's the scenario that we've tried to overcome. And you're now probably wondering, okay, he's measuring something between the eyes. I mean, that's the first thing that will be popped up on your head. And the measuring between the eyes, it's an old system 15, 20 years ago. It's not that relevant for large databases. And I want to just prove that we're not doing that. We're doing different stuff. And I want to show you. So we don't really care if you're exposing the top area of your head or the lower area of your head. And that's why our system is different than the other. Our software, our method of recognition is different. And you can use it on multiple platforms and whatever you want. And you've talked about it, access control. So touchless access control, but let's think about this touchless access control. You'll still need to touch the masks to lower it so the face recognition will detect you. I'm telling you, you don't need to. You don't need to. You don't need to put more cameras for to find something.
Gal, I'm just conscious of our time that we have on this platform. What I would like to show very quickly is the search facility, so that as an example, just looking at COVID, if somebody does present to one of the environments in which you're operating with and say, okay, you know, I was in the airport or I was in the port or wherever I was, could be a bus station even yesterday, and I've now got COVID, what we can do is search for that person, track that person, find that person.
Okay, so I'll run it quickly. So the search option, what it means that I'm going to fetch the history. Remember that I told you that every face that will be appeared in front of the camera will be collected here. I can re-ID people and search and also fetch the history and make and notice who was next to that specific person. Just by selecting a POI from our database or adding an image to that of that specific guy. I can just show you now. I'm not going to run the video because I've run it, but let's search for Tom Cruise. And once I'll search him, I will get recognitions of him. And I know the time, okay? I know that Tom Cruise was here at this date and time, and I'm going to view history and show in the camera Tom Cruise 2, TC2. Just going to search him on the, here it's a video, but on the camera, and watch list, just going to assign and search for all of the guys who were next to him. I'm just going to fetch the history and see he was next to him. That's the same guy, but you can see that he was next to him. And this guy was next to him. And this guy was next to him. And this guy was next to him according to the timestamp that we've filtered. And then we can notice everyone who've been next to that specific person. We can also tell you that about privacy, and you're probably wondering now, all of those pictures are not really related to our recognition. We're using signatures. And if I'll move to privacy mode, then you wouldn't have any pictures.
Right, Gal, I think it's a right time to wrap it up because we still have 5 other companies. But thank you so much for sharing this feature of the software. Great, so now we move to Tom from Laser Detect Systems. Tom?
You see me? You hear me okay?
Yes, great.
All right, so hold on. Let me just screen share with you guys.
Robert, just please turn off your camera meanwhile.
Companies that are not presenting, please turn off your camera after the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Hello, guys. Can everyone hear and see everything correctly? Can you see the slides on the screen?
Yes, great.
All right. So my name is Tom Gilad. I am the International Sales and Marketing Manager here at LDS. LDS stands for Laser Detect Systems. First off, thank you guys for your time and the opportunity. Very interesting discussion we heard before. LDS comes from a world a little bit different. We come from the world of explosives and narcotics detection and identification systems. So I will touch on the different products and technologies we have very briefly, and then I'll touch on how we've also tried to adapt to the situation at hand regarding COVID. And again, everything I'm going to discuss today is a matured and proven technology. We've been around since 2004. A lot of these technologies are the industry standards across a number of different markets. We have projects all over the world, in the Middle East, North America, South America, and vertical across a lot of different markets. Our technologies are applicable. You know, we're working with police, with military, with prisons, mass transit, customs, airports, you know, large events. So there's a lot of different applications for this type of stuff. The ideology behind what we're doing is that the threat of explosives and narcotics today is constantly changing. And what was once a traditional threat, let's say in explosives, TNT, RDX, HMX, commercial explosives that we're used to, that threat is changing, and terrorists are learning that you can do this kind of stuff with homemade products, products that on their own might seem innocent. Acetone, for instance, is used to take nail polish off your fingers. You know, hydrogen peroxide is used to make your hair color blonde, but when you combine acetone and hydrogen peroxide with a little bit of acid, you know, lemon, for instance, you get TATP, which is a very unstable and dangerous explosive that's been used across the globe in a number of different terrorist activities. The same thing goes with narcotics. Narcotics also can be made with a lot of chemicals that on their own might seem innocent. So the idea with what we're doing is not only to be able to identify and detect these different substances, but to develop a preventative strategy where we're also able to adapt to these threats and grow as they grow, to learn these new materials and to localize the database against local threats, and to be able to add these different substances to our database as we come across them and as the environment changes. You know, so some of the challenges we face is that some of these substances on their own might look innocent, as we said, acetone and hydrogen peroxide, but in fact, they might be very dangerous. Situations in airports we come across, you know, is this a bottle of water or is it an explosive mixture? You have a pill, is it, you know, Tylenol or is it compressed cocaine? Is this a bag of sugar or is it heroin or some kind of other illicit substance? So those are the challenges we come across. And again, we're trying to develop a preventative strategy and a strategy where we can also adapt to these different threats as they change. Some of the different products we have, I'll touch on them very briefly. And if you guys want later, we can go on in a little bit more depth. We have trace technology. The eye scan that you see, the third to the right, is oftentimes called sniffers. You can swab across surfaces. If you've ever been to the airport and they've checked your fingers and your belt buckle and different places where your fingers have touched to see if you've come into contact with any illicit substance. And the other functionality is the vapor mode. It has a nose on it. Oftentimes these are called sniffers to detect airborne vapors and gases and chemicals in the air around you. So there it's trace detection. So you're looking for something that you can't see with your eyes necessarily. On the other hand, we have, once you already have a substance on hand, whether it's an explosive or narcotic, whether it's a powder, liquid, or pill, and you need to identify what that is, on the left we have our G-scan. That's a Raman laser detector that'll identify what the substance is and classify the substance, if it's dangerous, if it's a narcotic, if it's an explosive. Here we also have the ability to learn new substances and to add new substances to our database and to differentiate between two substances. You know, let's say an explosive from Saudi Arabia, if it's TNT, and TNT from the UAE, while they're both TNT, the compositions are going to be a little bit different. So here we can also differentiate and not only say that something's TNT, but say that this is the same TNT that came from Saudi Arabia, or this is the same TNT that came from the UAE. On the right, we have our hybrid detection kit, where we've combined a number of these different technologies into one comprehensive mobile laboratory for explosives and narcotics detection and identification. You have analytical software that can help break down the components of it, integrated integrated data from all the different sensors. And the idea here is that there's not one technology that on its own can do everything, but when you combine these different technologies, they kind of supplement the limitations of each other and give you the highest in capability when it comes to explosives and narcotics detection and identification. Here we have the mix scan, which is also our kind of like the Raman laser, that's just more for standalone and for laboratory purposes. And all the way on the right, we have our under vehicle scanner, which is a vehicle inspection station where we can integrate a lot of these different explosives and narcotic sensors, along with other sensors, whether it be biometric data or license plate recognition, things of that nature. Now in the middle, you'll see something called the Tactical Polygraph, which I think is going to be interesting to you guys, and where we've also tried to adapt to the COVID situation. So the Tactical Polygraph is a polygraph alternative, requires minimal training, and it's the ability to screen a large amount of people in a small amount of time. So you develop a set of questions, as little as 7 questions and as little as 10 minutes, you can build a profile on someone. They're listening and reading the questions through headphones while their hand is on a galvanic skin response sensor that's measuring the electricity that's conducted through the sweat to develop a profile on someone and what they're lying about. And what we've done now with COVID is we're actually developing a COVID kiosk, let's say, where we're integrating this tactical polygraph with a number of other sensors. There is a certain academic research institution that we're working with here in Israel. A lot of the research has identified that a primary symptom of COVID is anosmia, or loss of smell or loss of taste. So we're trying to develop a test that measures if someone's lost their smell, integrated with an infrared sensor that can measure temperature, and integrated with this tactical polygraph where you can, customize the questions as little as 7 questions to, check into someone's travel history, questions regarding quarantine, questions regarding exposure to, other sick people. And it's not necessarily going to tell you if someone has COVID or not, but more so if someone's a threat or not, or if someone can potentially be a security threat. And, this can be adapted beyond COVID to, other diseases and other situations because it's an adaptable system.
Thank you, Tom. I think that's a good point to move to the next company.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Amir from See-Through AI.
Asaf.
So, hi, first of all, hi everybody. Let me share my screen. 1 second. The panel was a lot about COVID-19.
If you can speak a bit louder also.
Yeah, sure. Do you hear me now? Right. So there was a lot of discussion about COVID-19 and how airports can get to work from a biology perspective and test people for COVID. And as others mentioned, there's also the challenge that the regular security risks haven't been reduced. It's just that you need now to handle it in a different way. And when you're looking at checkpoints, by the way, not only in airports, also in land borders and in any other place that there are checkpoints, you now have also the need for social distancing, which is almost the opposite of being able to screen properly. So hi, I'm Asaf from C-True. I'm the CEO of C-True. We are an artificial intelligence company doing AI for fast and safe screening. We're operationally deployed in many places around the world, in airports, and also in other venues. With very strong technology. We recently received, were nominated as a top solution by the UN World Travel Organization for our ability to enable social distancing in airport checkpoints. So today we provide our technology for airports, urban security, customs, and loss prevention. I want to focus in our limited time on airports and customs, and the same goes for land borders as well. What we do in all these places is we touch two measurable KPIs. First is throughputs, is the ability to increase throughputs of whether it's people or cargo or parcels in more than 30% through the security screening process, and ensure a very high detection rate of more than 90%. This enables us, first of all, to have more space at checkpoint. So we enable social distancing. We improve the passenger experience or visitor experience because they don't need to wait so much time at the checkpoint. We enable lower costs because you need less human operators to check or operate the process. So you can reduce your cost by 20%, your headcount cost by 20%, and to have better security. Looking very briefly at airports, so on the right you can see a typical checkpoint before COVID-19. Obviously, we can't have these kind of crowds today, so we don't in many airports because there are not enough passengers, but hoping that in a few months we'll have more passengers. And also today, when you don't operate the full breadth of checkpoints you have, lines tend to occur. Even in airports, we're active now in which there are not many flights a day. The flights are usually at the same time, so you can have also now some peak hours. So we want to have both the passengers in space between one and another, and you don't want your security officers to be exposed or be the contamination risk, because they are, for every bag they're opening, they're touching the bag that the passenger touched a minute before and a minute later. So even when they are using gloves, they are carrying or in a risk of contamination between one passenger, the other, and themselves, because you're not imagining that they're changing 500 gloves a shift. So by opening only the right bags and reducing the number of open bags by a 10x factor almost, you can reduce the risk of officer contamination significantly and make sure that you are well secured. Touching on that, you have different testimonials, the numbers in the industry that the actual detection of not in computer tests but of real tests are less than, you see here a quote from CNN of 95% failure, but let's say that even 60% failure is a very high failure rate, where we are talking about more than 90% detection rates. So on the side of reducing costs, enabling social distancing, and putting passengers faster into and having more dwell time in the commercial area, so we have more revenues, we're also improving security significantly. With respect to time, I'll show you very quickly how it looks. So we're connected to existing X-ray or CT machines. You don't need to replace your current infrastructure. And in a side-by-side configuration, every bag that enters, we either clear it or provide an alert. So you see here a bag that is cleared. And when a new bag comes, we analyze the bags in real time. You see here that this new bag comes and we analyze it. We provide, this is the existing X-ray equipment. This is one of the brands. And we are connecting to it, extracting the data out of it, analyzing in real time, and when needed, providing an alert or clearing. In this case, there is a gun inside the bag. So the bag is taken out either manually like here or automatically when there are more advanced lanes. This is taken directly to a secondary station. So this bag should be opened by an operator. At the same time, we're now something like 7% from the time that the bag was in the conveyor. The next passenger, we don't see him now, but the next passenger is already there, is already passing. So the queue is not stalled, but it's continuous. You don't stop the conveyor, and the entire process is going faster. And here, from the security perspective, the officer has an application that shows him where to look in the bag, and he can
Asaf, I think also that's a good point to move to the next company. Yuval from SMUFS.
Hi, are you playing the presentation or should I do it?
No, you can share your screen.
I'm with the presentation. You can begin. Yuval, feel free to begin.
Okay, can you play it?
Hello and welcome to this session of border protection in times of COVID-19, biggest challenges. My name is Yuval Cohen and I am the CTO of SMUFS Biometric Solution. SMUFS Biometric Solution develops and manufactures biometric devices and identity management solutions. We are the provider of the national office that manages the biometric of foreigners. In Israel, we enroll foreigners, workers, and immigrants into this national office. Currently, the government of Israel is in a pilot of acquiring 10 prints, face, and passport image from all tourists. SBS provides the biometric infrastructure and fingerprint scanner for this pilot. All of our mobile scanner devices are FBI and Apple certified. But enough talking about us, let's start. According to EU guidelines for border management measures issued on March this year, the coronavirus crisis has highlighted the challenge of protecting the health of the population whilst avoiding disruptions to the free movement of persons and the delivery of goods and essential services. Looking at the COVID-19 pandemic, we understand that humanity is still in a learning process. Governments and agencies are trying to balance the social and economical life with maximum health protection. We witness in our customers and segments a reaction that is not proportional to the situation. Some of these reactions are clearly unfeasible. Others are very difficult to handle. We now understand that the COVID-19 pandemic will take some time, if at all, begun. As we see it, some adjustments are required for border control to maintain its tasks. Border control must carry on its missions, since traveling for business and tourism is economic necessity. From our perspective, there are three major challenges for border control in the COVID-19 era.
Yuval, sorry to interrupt. If you're here with us, maybe you can verbally explain.
To pass securely and COVID-19 hazard-free through borders, and thirdly, protect border control operators and officers which are in the frontier of the human interaction with travelers. So let's start with how do we maintain secure border control. The border control threats and risks did not go away. It is now more difficult to maintain them due to the COVID-19. Some of our customers, especially in the early days of the pandemic, came up with very innovative ideas like, let's go to iris biometrics, we need to change the system, and the like. We think that such ideas do not take into account the huge investment in the existing biometric infrastructure.
Alon, Shahak, if you're playing the video, can you please stop it for a second?
These two are the same thing.
Thank you. And we have here the representative of the company, right? Yuval, you're here?
Yes, I am.
Great. So if we can just, due to time pressure, if you can just jump into the slide about your solution for border management, and then we can continue.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. So we offer a range of mobile devices for fingerprint scanning. The idea is based on the fact that there will be no change in the near future with the huge investment that governments made for traveling documents and databases for citizens. In the border, it's very, very crucial to keep using these e-passports and national IDs. So we don't see the government now starting a 20 years process of reinventing the wheel. What we offer is a mobile device which is fully mobile. It connects with wireless communication and allows distancing between the officer and the object. So, and this is all FBI certified devices coming from single finger to slab. It is easy to carry and use and can be used with the existing devices that officer have. And these are the main products that we think that are good for the border control. Can we go to the next slide, please? Alon? Yeah, thank you. There is another challenge that we see even here in Israel. Most of the offices of the border control are considered to be sensitive infrastructure, meaning that the staff is going through two-factor authentication. So using the fingerprint on the stationary access control system is again something that needs to be rethinking about. What we offer, even in Israel, that we're doing a pilot now, is with the biometric smart card, meaning it is a two-factor authentication where the reader is on the card itself. So there is no chance that the officer will be coronavirus threatened. This is essentially it for border control. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't see any questions right now, so we'll move to Shaul from Third Eye Systems. And Yuval, if you can turn off your video, thank you. Shaul, yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shaul. I'm the VP Business Development in Third Eye Systems. And today I will present our suggestion for border control. So Third Eye Systems established 10 years ago. We specialize in artificial intelligence for video analytics and automation of robotic platforms. I'll try really to minimize the presentation today. As you can see, in the gray bars, today all the chain of and process of any kind of identification between threat and reaction, it's quite long, and it's involved a lot of steps that human being must be involved in. Our goal is actually to minimize this process and make sure that all the analytics will be made and digested by the machine and be delivered to the human being for him to be not an observer, but a decision maker. the way I want to present it, it's actually a synchronized system combined from state-of-the-art edge computing devices, covered a large scale of area, air and land, and creating actually a virtual wall of full control and on a designated area. Really, on a nutshell, I will touch the current challenges, which is actually efficiency, that as a human being, as a systems, we reliable on a human being for doing or monitoring any kind of the steps. Area coverage, if it's a large area with different terrain, it's quite hard task to do it. Most important things, which turnkey solutions are cost a lot of money and mainly are not digested or activated good by the client, not because the systems are not good, because they're not adaptable for the changing environment. And the unused measures. Anytime that any kind of organization would like to upgrade these systems, it will face a problem that of wear and tear or unfunctional other systems that it cannot really use it. I will present some of our measures, really in a nutshell, which they will create the whole system. The first one is the Medusa. It's a EOIR system that initially actually detect drones. Nevertheless, we can calibrate any kind of classes of vehicle, human being, and fire inside. Just want to show you how it looks. Jump real quick. Can be integrated with other measures as RF and the radars. And it's worked totally passively and as a standalone. The other system, it's the Chimera. It's a dual day and night thermal camera that all the analytics made on board for recognition of several classes. It can be mounted on a drone, any other robotic platform on the ground, and even on UAVs. Works on the ATR auto target recognition methodology and VMD, video motion detection, combining together. Regarding hard terrains, I'm sorry that I'm jumping so fast. I just don't want anyone to limit the question time. It's the matter of the fusion ability, both of the sensors working in the background simultaneously, and in the matter of different terrains. For instance, if it's heat conditions or any other environment conditions like foliage, once the object is even lying down in a field and I cannot see him by vision, by the thermal, I will be able to see it. I'd like to jump for one of the most important releases that we had recently, and this is actually part of a project that we're working with the Israeli MOD. It's an area dominance for comparatively very cheap tool as a drone, comparing to the UAV. We can dominance a large area of 1,000 square kilometers by jumping and building a tile, and you can actually can recognize any kind of a movement and track it. The AI, which is actually our command and control, as utilize analytics as a product, can handle a fleet of autonomous missions configurable by the user, can enhance any kind of analytics on cooled or uncooled measures that are actually exist with the client, and digest it all in the client command and control in a very smooth and unintrusive way. The way we see the matters that we deal with, the challenges, the efficiency, it's no man in the loop, shorten the response time and the whole analyzing process, the area coverage, by the area dominance and versatile tools that I can control simultaneously, the unadaptable systems, which we can actually enhance analytics into existing systems, and unused measures, which mainly that you want to upgrade any kind of a system, you don't have the flexibility of the other system that you rely on. So this is something we can work. And in the bottom line, it's a cost effective for uncooled, it's embedded system, software and hardware. From the survey to the SLA, it's made by one company, and it's field proven by the Israeli MOD and other Western European countries, Air Force and military. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I would have one.
Yes, one question.
Thank you for the presentation. This Chimera camera, what kind of coverage are we talking about there? If you have one camera, to have an idea.
Okay, so for the Chimera specifically, it's quite flexible. As you can see, it's a day and night channels, and it depends on the height of the robot that you work with, and of course the field of view of I'm sorry, I see that I'm not showing the screen, and the field of view of the lens that you choose. What you saw in the area dominance, we use the thermal channel, 35 millimeter lens, and 500 meters high. So with a single drone, we managed to cover 995 square meters, approximately 1 square kilometer. But it's very adaptable, and it depends really on the platform that you choose, or you let us choose, and your actual needs.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shaul. And last but not least, Yael from V-Sites. The floor is yours. But maybe we can't hear you. Quick fix maybe to the microphone, because we can't hear you yet.
Now you can hear me?
Yes, super. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah. Hi, I'm Yael from V-Sites.
But maybe you can push your phone a bit away from the camera or the laptop or anything.
The phone. Can you hear me better now?
Or turn it off. Okay, now better, I think.
Okay. We call ourselves the next generation of video analytics. What we do is behavioral recognition for real-time video intelligence. There is a massive investment in infrastructure of CCTV and surveillance cameras around the world, and there is a huge amount of data that needs to be processed. So what we've created is a system that can send an alert only for the events of interest, and therefore creates actionable insights so border police or regular police can attend to matters of safety and security in real time. This is us at a glance. We have 3 patents already registered in the US. We have our technology is is called supervised machine learning. So other video analytics companies use pixel change or image recognition, but what we do is we train our system based on predefined use case. And we need about 20 to 150 videos to train it. And that also means that we can add new features every couple of months. And we have a high rate of accuracy due to the machine learning technology. We have near real-time alerting. We need 3 seconds to process the behavior in the live stream video and then send an alert. We were established in 2015, and we are already deployed in safe and smart cities, smart enterprises. We're actually already deployed in an airport in Europe with the COVID-19 solution that I will shortly present. And we have an in-vehicle monitoring product in development for behavior in shared mobility. So where do we stand in the video analytics market? So as you've seen, there are facial recognition companies, license plates, recognition, object detection. Where we come in is that we put the time element in the video. That makes us able to understand the movement of an object. It's also different from other companies that use machine learning and send an alert for abnormal behavior, because as I've explained, we send a specific alert for a specific predefined use case that we've already defined. So it gives the operators in the command and control center more data. So what do we do? We understand the behavior and object in a video. That can be a person running, a person falling, a person sitting, but then we also put it into context. If a car stops in the driveway, that's not really interesting. But if a car stops in the middle of a junction, that puts it into context, and that therefore we understand what is happening in the video and send an alert for the event of interest. So other video analytics companies do static object classification. They can tell you how many people are in a video and what colors do they wear, but they won't be able to tell you what is happening in the video. This is an example. On the left-hand side, we don't really know what are these two people doing. Are they moving? Are they hugging, fighting, falling? But only in the next frame will we understand what is happening in the video. And this is what we've done. We've created a processing system of 7 to 8 frames that we process within the span of 3 seconds. And that means that we're taking the time elements into consideration and therefore understanding the object's movement within the video. So the way we understand it is we understand an object's actions. One object can a person falling, running, sitting, holding a gun, wearing a mask. And then there are events, which are the interaction between 2 or more objects. So it can be people fighting, a car accident, a person getting in and out of a car. And then there are entire scenes that are describing what's happening in the live stream video, which can be a crowding scene, a riot scene. We have the other layer of contextual awareness of where is this happening, and the high performance due to our machine learning technology. We have a standard deployment architecture. We need to connect on the one end to the VMS. We pull the RTSP live stream, process the video on a dedicated server, and then send the alert through an open API to a command and control center. This is our value proposition. We have 2 products. Our flagship product is called V-Sites-Wise. We have 7 functionality groups: violent activity, suspicious activity, crowd behavior, parameter protection, traffic monitoring, safety, and our recently developed public health features. And the way our business model is based on a license per stream, which is a one-time perpetual license. We have another product that is called V-Sites True. It's based on the same technology, but what it does, it takes raw alerts from already existing CCTV cameras, filters out the false alerts, and sends an alert to the true alert to the command and control center. A true alert will be a person or a car moving. And this is different because this will be for a quiet area when no one is supposed to be in. And the WISE product is a 24/7 behavior analytics platform. So now I will present use cases we've recently added. This is, for example, due to the corona crisis, you would get an alert for a queue proximity, which also you would need at airports. This is actually an example from the airport that we are currently deployed in Europe. Here you can see we can detect whether a person is wearing or not wearing a mask. This is our internal UI. And you can also see here that we can detect different type of groupings and also the proximity of persons. So this is actually at the luggage claim. And the airport asked us to send an alert either for not wearing a mask or for when people are too close to one another. That is also an adjustable feature. If you think that the alert is for something that is too far, that you can adjust it to something that is more close. And also we have a feature for detecting the number of groups. So if you want to detect a small group, a larger group, or a crowd of over 15 people. This is counting people also for COVID-19. If you don't want more than 10 to 20 people at a certain area at a checkpoint. So you can define the area in which that you want to count the people in. And here you would count the people going in and out from a certain zone.
I think we can stop here, Yael. And are there any questions? So thank you so much. And a great thank you to all the representatives that took part during presentations now and in the event. Thank you all for participating. Also the one who participated from Israel and from Poland. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.